Claire didn't believe in curses. She didn't believe in ghosts, omens, bad luck, or haunted antiques. She was logical, calm, and grounded. A therapist, in fact. So when she found the antique mirror in a dusty corner of an estate sale, she only saw a beautiful vintage addition to her new apartment. It was tall, 6 feet at least, framed in dark walnut wood with floral carvings so detailed they looked almost alive. The glass shimmered faintly, even in the shade, as if it were always lit by candlelight. There were no cracks, no dust, no fingerprints. It looked untouched, waiting. The old man who ran the sale smiled when she asked the price. $50 and it's yours, but just so you know, it's got a memory. Claire chuckled. Don't we all? Not like this one. He didn't elaborate, just took her money and helped load it into the back of her SUV. The mirror looked perfect in her hallway. She placed it opposite the entrance, so it was the first thing guests would see when they arrived. Elegant, regal, almost royal. That night, she lit a candle and stood in front of it. Her reflection stared back normally, at first. Then, as she leaned in to blow out the candle, she paused. Her reflection was still smiling. Just for a moment. She blinked. Looked again. Everything seemed normal. I'm tired, she muttered to herself, brushing it off. She went to bed. But the mirror didn't forget. The next morning, Claire walked past it, sipping coffee, barely glancing. But something made her stop. In the mirror, her reflection held a mug that said, 1-1 Mom. But her real mug was blank. No design. She never owned anything with that phrase. She turned her hand over. Nothing. Looked back at the mirror. Now the words were gone. Over the next few days, strange little things started to happen. One night, she saw her reflection walk into the hallway before she did. Another evening, her mirrored self had a cut across her cheek, a thin red line, but Claire's skin was untouched. She tried to rationalize it. Old glass, light tricks, stress. She was working longer hours, taking more clients. Maybe she was imagining things. That theory held until the mirror started showing other people. It happened the following Friday. Claire was walking past on her way to the kitchen when she froze. There was a man in the reflection, standing behind her, tall, pale, wearing an old, torn military jacket, the kind from the 1940s. She spun around. The hallway was empty. Her heart pounded as she looked back. Now the reflection was normal. Just her. But she could still smell cigarette smoke in the air. And she didn't smoke. She started covering the mirror with a sheet at night. She'd tape the edges down, double-check before bed, but every morning, without fail. The sheet was on the floor. Once it was folded neatly beside the mirror. Another time it was hanging from the ceiling fan. She started recording with her phone. Set it up overnight. The footage glitched. Every time. Right around 2:43 a.m., just static. But the audio remained. A soft humming. A lullaby. By the second week, Claire started seeing things without even looking at the mirror. Out of the corner of her eye, she'd catch movement. Her own face, staring from rooms she wasn't in. Once, while brushing her teeth, she looked down to rinse, and when she looked up, there were two of her. One smiling. One not. She threw the toothbrush and ran out. She slept on the couch that night, the mirror still visible across the hallway. She woke up at 3:17 a.m. to the sound of someone whispering, "Remember me." The next morning, she went back to the estate sale address, but the house was boarded up, abandoned. A neighbor saw her standing there and approached cautiously. "You didn't buy something from him, did you?" Claire hesitated. "A mirror." The woman sighed. "That man's been dead for 5 years. No one's lived there since." Claire's stomach dropped. "Then who sold me the mirror?" The woman shook her head slowly. "You should leave it where you found it, if it lets you." That night, Claire tried to drag the mirror to the curb. It was heavy, heavier than it should have been, like something was anchoring it to the floor. She strained, screamed, finally shoved it outside, slammed the door behind her. But when she woke the next morning, it was back in the hallway, covered in muddy footprints, not hers, children's. By the second week, Claire started seeing things without even looking at the mirror. Out of the corner of her eye, she'd catch movement. Her own face, staring from rooms she wasn't in. Once, while brushing her teeth, she looked down to rinse, and when she looked up, there were two of her, one smiling, one not. She threw the toothbrush and ran out. She slept on the couch that night, the mirror still visible across the hallway. She woke up at 3:17 a.m. to the sound of someone whispering, "Remember me." The next morning, she went back to the estate sale address, but the house was boarded up, abandoned. A neighbor saw her standing there and approached cautiously. "You didn't buy something from him, did you?" Claire hesitated. "A mirror." The woman sighed. "That man's been dead for 5 years. No one's lived there since." Claire's stomach dropped. "Then who sold me the mirror?" The woman shook her head slowly. "You should leave it where you found it, if it lets you." That night, Claire tried to drag the mirror to the curb. It was heavy. Heavier than it should have been, like something was anchoring it to the floor. She strained, screamed, finally shoved it outside, slammed the door behind her. But when she woke the next morning, it was back in the hallway, covered in muddy footprints. Not hers. Children's. She sat across from it for hours, watching, waiting, and just as the sun dipped below the horizon, the mirror began to fog from the inside. A single handprint appeared in the center, small, delicate. Then a face pressed forward from behind the glass, not breaking it, just pushing through like it was water. It was her, but not. Younger. Eyes hollow, mouth slightly open, whispering something. Claire leaned in closer, and the reflection spoke. "You forgot what you did." Then it smiled. Claire didn't sleep that night, not because she was afraid of the mirror, but because she no longer trusted her own mind. That face, that voice, the handprint from inside the glass. It wasn't just a hallucination. It was too specific, too familiar. The face that appeared had been hers, but younger, from a time she tried to forget, maybe even before memory itself. She sipped cold coffee at 6 a.m., staring at the covered mirror, half expecting it to speak again. But it stayed silent, almost like it was watching, waiting, listening. By midday, she had made up her mind. She would find out where the mirror came from, not through superstition, but through facts. She called antique dealers. Most didn't recognize it. One woman said it sounded familiar and gave her a name. Dr. Gregory Varn, historical archivist, specializes in 19th century artifacts with spiritual attachments. That last part made Claire laugh, but she booked the appointment anyway. Dr. Varn was a soft-spoken man in his 60s with kind eyes and too many books. When Claire showed him a photo of the mirror, he didn't speak for a full minute. Then he walked to a tall filing cabinet, pulled out a folder, and set it on the table without a word. Inside, old photos, newspaper clippings, and a single envelope, scorched around the edges. One article read, "House fire claims 3, 1 girl survives." Another, dated 2 years later. "Local orphan hospitalized after night terrors, claims mirror shows her real life." Claire felt sick. The girl in the photo? She was wearing the same dress as the reflection she saw in the mirror. Varn finally spoke. That mirror was crafted in 1872 by a man named Elias Ward. He believed mirrors could hold memories, capture them, store pain, joy, even death. Claire tried to stay calm. "So, it's cursed?" Varn shook his head. "Worse. It's a vessel, but it doesn't just reflect what happened. It remembers, and it waits for someone to open it again." Claire closed the folder. "I already tried to get rid of it." "And it came back, didn't it?" She nodded. Varn looked genuinely sorry. "Then you're part of it now." Back at home, Claire entered slowly. Her keys trembled in her hand. The hallway was dark. The mirror, still covered, stood like a silent guard. She approached it. For a moment, nothing. Then her phone buzzed. No caller ID. She answered. "Hello?" Silence. Then her voice, distorted, soft, and coming from both the phone and the mirror. "You forgot what you did. Let me help you remember." She dropped the phone, ripped the sheet off the mirror. What she saw wasn't her apartment anymore. It was a child's room. A nightlight glowed softly in the corner. Stuffed animals, a small bookshelf, crayon drawings on the walls. In the mirror's reflection, a little girl sat on the bed. Claire's breath caught in her throat. It was her, 6 years old. The girl looked up and smiled. "He didn't mean to hurt us." The mirror flickered. The hallway returned. Claire staggered back, clutching the wall. That night, she didn't sleep again, but at 3 a.m. she woke up screaming. Not from a dream, but from a sound. The hallway was echoing with children's laughter. She stepped out of the bedroom, trembling. The mirror was glowing. On its surface, 4 handprints, tiny ones, slowly sliding downward, leaving faint streaks of fog. Claire's chest tightened. She whispered, "What do you want from me?" The reflection didn't answer. Instead, the hallway behind her, in the mirror, darkened. And something stepped into view. Not a person, a shadow, with antlers. It stood behind her in the mirror, unmoving. She turned. Nothing. But her breath froze in the air. Claire decided to sleep in her car, just until morning. As she opened her apartment door to leave, she stopped. On the inside of the door, etched in something dark, were words. "Reflections lie, but memories don't." She stared, heart pounding, then slammed the door shut. The next day, she packed a suitcase. She'd stay with a friend, take a break, regroup. She didn't tell anyone the truth. Who would believe her? But just as she opened the door to leave, her phone buzzed again. Text message. From a number she didn't recognize. It was a photo of her, sleeping, taken from the hallway. In the background, the mirror, and in the mirror's reflection, standing behind her sleeping body, was the younger Claire, smiling, holding a lighter. Claire hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were bloodshot, her hands shaking from too much caffeine and too little reality. Her apartment no longer felt like hers. It felt like a stage, and she was both actor and audience in a play she didn't remember auditioning for. The mirror loomed in the hallway, always visible, always quiet, but never truly still. Since the text, she'd checked every lock, every room, every drawer. She was alone, physically at least. But the reflection, that wasn't hers anymore. She sat in front of the mirror at noon, sunlight pouring into the hallway. Still, the mirror seemed darker than everything else around it. She stared, and the mirror stared back. Claire took a deep breath. "I don't remember. You keep saying I forgot. Then show me." The surface of the mirror rippled. Then it cleared, and the fire returned. It wasn't a dream. She was standing in a room, a child's room. Everything warped slightly, like old film playing too fast. The walls flickered between past and present, wallpaper peeling, stuffed animals melting into ash. The mirror showed her everything. She was 6 years old, in her pajamas, holding a book of matches. The scene felt like a memory trapped in honey, slow, sticky, surreal. Little Claire sat at the edge of her bed. Her hands trembled as she struck a match, watching the flame dance. And then, a scream. A woman entered the room. Her mother. The matchbook dropped. The curtain caught fire, and everything went to hell. The fire spread fast, too fast. The wallpaper blackened. Smoke poured through the vents. Her mother pulled her from the room, coughing, screaming. A man appeared. Her father? No. A stranger, pale, watching. Claire blinked. Then the mirror whispered, "You didn't mean to, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen." She staggered back, collapsing onto the floor. Tears ran down her face. That can't be real. My parents died in a car accident. The mirror pulsed. Once. Like a heartbeat. The scene shifted. Hospital lights. A child in a bed. Doctors whispering. The words trauma block, delusion, and fire origin unknown. Claire screamed and threw a lamp at the mirror. The glass cracked. Finally. But instead of shattering, it bled. Thick black liquid oozed from the cracks, trailing down the frame like veins opening. A voice came from behind her now, soft, familiar. You survived, but you left us behind. She turned slowly. Little Claire stood in the hallway. The same one from the vision, same pajamas, same burned hands, but her eyes were hollow, empty. You forgot me. You forgot what you did. Claire backed away. It wasn't my fault. I was a child. I didn't know. The girl's voice changed. Deeper, older, echoing. You lit the match. You watched it burn. You made me stay here. Claire ran, out of the hallway, into the bathroom, slammed the door, locked it. She looked in the mirror above the sink. Smaller, modern, no reflection, just darkness. And then, a knock from inside the medicine cabinet. She screamed and stepped back, knocking over the towel rack. The knock came again, this time with a whisper. Let me out. She turned to leave, and the door slammed shut on its own. Her reflection reappeared, but it wasn't her. It was the girl. Older now, late 20s, charred face, smiling, and behind her, the mirror. Always the mirror. Claire passed out. She woke on the floor of her hallway. The house was cold, silent. The mirror, gone. In its place was a note, scrawled in her own handwriting, though she had no memory of writing it. You don't get to forget. We all burned. You were just the only one who ran. Come back, face it, or stay here, forever. The floor beneath the note began to rot, slowly turning black. She stepped back, heart racing. Behind her, the lights flickered, and the sound of a match striking echoed through the apartment. She turned. The girl was there again, older, cracked, holding a match. This time you don't get to wake up. The apartment around her twisted. Walls melted into shadows. Furniture dissolved. The only thing left was the mirror and herself. Claire fell to her knees. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know. The mirror pulsed again. Then prove it. Claire stood in a house that was no longer hers. Walls flickered like dying flames, reality bent at the edges. The mirror, cracked, pulsing, breathing, towered in front of her like a monument to regret. Around her, the apartment peeled apart. The hallway stretched endlessly in both directions, leading only deeper into memory. I didn't mean to forget, she whispered. I didn't know I had. The mirror's surface rippled like black water. A voice echoed out, hers but younger, warped, hollow. You left me in the fire, and I never stopped burning. Claire took a deep breath and stepped forward. The mirror didn't resist. It accepted her. She passed through the glass like mist, not shattered, not broken, just pulled in. And suddenly, she was 6 years old again, standing in the burning bedroom. The heat was real this time. The flames licked the ceiling. The curtains curled into black ribbons. Her little hands trembled, holding the matchbook just like before. But this time, she remembered. Her mother screamed in the hallway. Claire turned, and there, in the corner of the room, stood little Claire. Not a memory, a presence, a piece of her that never left. The girl's eyes were filled with terror, not malice. She wasn't a ghost. She was the part of Claire that had been abandoned, emotionally sealed away to protect the adult that Claire had become. I was scared, the little girl whispered. Claire fell to her knees. I know, I was too. And I'm sorry I left you here. The mirror pulsed behind them, but this time, not angrily. It shimmered like it was listening. The smoke grew thicker, but instead of choking, Claire felt clarity. The girl took her hand. You forgot me so we wouldn't hurt, but it didn't work. Claire nodded. It never does. A deep roar came from the mirror, the final barrier between guilt and forgiveness. Claire looked down at the child version of herself. It's time to leave. The little girl looked scared. What if we don't make it? Claire smiled. Then we go together. They turned. The mirror stood open behind them, swirling like a black storm. The fire closed in. They stepped forward and woke up, back in the hallway. The apartment was silent, normal. The mirror? Shattered. Completely. A pile of glass shards glittered on the floor like salt beneath a black sky. The frame was empty, hollow. Claire stood in the doorway, barefoot, heart pounding. The mirror was gone, for good. She cleaned everything, burned the fragments, changed the locks, moved apartments a week later. But on her last night in the old place, she stood in the empty hallway one final time. There was no mirror, just a faint outline on the wall where it had once stood. She reached out, touched the space. Cold, but still. Months passed. Life went on. Claire smiled more, slept better, even started seeing someone new. But sometimes, at night, she walks by the hallway mirror in her new apartment and doesn't see herself. Sometimes the reflection lags by 1 second. Sometimes her reflection smiles just a little too long. Sometimes she hears the faintest whisper, "Thank you for coming back for me."